Amen. Amen. So I just thought there's been a long weekend. There might be a few people who don't know me or my family. So I think we've got a picture to go up there. So this was back in 2020, and on the left, on your left there is Max, our eldest, then obviously me and Jed, who married Lily. So Jed's our middle boy, my beautiful wife Mandy, and our lovely daughter Ezra, or Millie, or Esley, whichever she wants to go. So that's my family. But wait, there's one more. So that's our little granddaughter that was born early February. I want to say second. And that photo was taken by Mandy. She was over there in Texas, and she was over there a few weeks ago, and she took that photo, and yeah, we just love her. It's crazy, eh? Like never met her, but as soon as she was born, there was that love as a grandparent, and I just think that's the Father's heart for us, that there's that love that He has for each and every one of you. So, yeah, just love that shot. Love it so very much. So this weekend, Anzac weekend, I was smart. I've taken annual leave tomorrow, so it is a long weekend. Anzac Day has always been very special to me. It's something that's been, ever since, I don't know, I can remember, it's been a really special day. And I think it's to do that it's my birthday. So it is a special day, but whenever I hear Anzac Day, it does conjure up things, and it does get me thinking about things, and it might be the little boy in me that, you play wars and you get a stick and it's the coolest gun out, and I don't know if you girls do this, but as guys, my brother and I, we would be in the bushes and running around, and war was a big thing, and there's the tragedy side of it as well. And I was just, when Jono asked me to speak probably a month or so ago, and I realised it was Anzac weekend, it was like, okay, what is there in that? And I just started mulling over things and going to Mr. Google and doing a few bits and pieces and muddling around, and I ended up in Exodus. We've got a lot of scripture this morning. I hope that's okay. Don't say it's not. So Exodus 17, if you have your Bibles. My hands are shaking. From verse 8, we'll start reading. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of your men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekites' army, but with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord. The Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation." So that the Lord is my banner, or God of victory, in the Hebrew, Jehovah Nissi. And we're doing a lot of like God's names, and the fact that on Anzac weekend we have a God of victory makes my heart feel quite good. It's a battle we're in, but there's victory in God in that. And just victory doesn't always happen like we think it might happen. For some of those guys in the valley who were fighting, it probably didn't feel very victorious. It's a battle. There are wounded people. But I just want to explore some different ways. I believe what we see in the natural can be in the spiritual and vice versa, and there's probably a special word for it, but often the physical battle can be the spiritual battle as well. And I just want to sort of maybe explore a few different ways we can do the battle, because we know it is a battle, eh? Like we are in a battle. Yeah. I've read the end of the book, we win. Yeah. Okay, we win, but there is battles going forward. And to my knowledge, my understanding, I think this was the first battle after the Israelites had got out of Egypt. But there were many more battles to come. So just because you get through one doesn't mean to say you won't get through another. I want to look at the staff that Moses had and where that came from. And if we pop back, you don't have to do that, but if we pop back to Exodus 4 from verse 1, Moses answered, "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say the Lord did not appear to you?" So remember last week Andrew had the stools and God's having a conversation with Moses, and Andrew brought out that there's other voices in our head, isn't there? And so Moses is actually asking God, like he's doubting, yeah. Make sense? Making sense? Then the Lord, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" "A staff," he replied. "What is in your hand?" The Lord said, "Throw it down." Moses threw it down on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake and turned it back into a staff in his hand. What is in your hand right now in your battle? What has God given you way back somewhere some time ago, potentially, that you can use now? It will be very different for all of us. Moses had a staff in his hand. It was just a stick. When God gets hold of it, he can do crazy good things. And that's the same with what you have and I have in my hand. So he throws that down and it becomes a snake. And he runs away, freaks out by it. He's not Crocodile Man Steve Irwin, is he? Like he's getting back. But then God says, "Go and get it." And so I would imagine Moses would have had to have taken a bit of authority over his thinking to go in and grab that tail. He can't do it half-heartedly, but God has given us authority to do that sort of thing. And so he would have been like Steve Irwin, jumping in, "Oh, I got that thing," and he'd be into it. He'd have it. He goes, "Oh, the fangs on that, look at those things." But he didn't have time because it turned back to a staff. And I just wonder what God has put in your hand that you can use in your battle now. Make sense? Yep, good. Thank you. Right, we're going to jump back to our original verses, and we go to Exodus 17:10, which we have just read. I think we're going there. See my little bit of pink bits of paper for where I'm finding things, and they stick too well actually. But so Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. There wasn't much of a conversation with God about this. Back through, we see God and Moses having these conversations, but here Moses is there's instructions, and I'm sure God and Moses, they were just in communion all the time about what's going on. But Moses is feeling pretty powerful because he's got through the Red Sea, he's just smacked the rock and it's got water and all that sort of stuff, so he's feeling pretty good with his staff in his hand. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him. one on one side and one on the other. In your battle, who's got you? Who is standing with you, side by side, in your battle? Who is that person that you could ring at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and say, hey, I need you? I believe we all need one or two of those in our life. In the physical, Moses needed some help for the spiritual to happen down in the valley. And those guys came alongside and held up his hands so the battle could be won. Who is fighting your battle with you? I think often in Christian circles, we get quite lazy, and we hear things going on, and we do a little emoji or a little prayer emoji, hands together type thing. And we say, oh, gutted to hear that, sorry, praying for you and stuff. I'm not dissing that at all. I had messages yesterday from different ones saying, hey, really looking forward to, bless you for tomorrow, and different things, and this morning as well. They are awesome, and we all do it. But I think sometimes we think we've done enough by putting a little message out, where in the physical, we need to go around and walk a journey with that person. And I also think we need to sometimes ask for a bit of help. It's a really important part of life to get through. Mandy and I, we're journeying with a couple at the moment, probably known them for 25-ish years or whatever it is. And we don't live in each other's back pockets. We have a bit to do with them from time to time, but they're going through a bit of stuff at the moment. So, I don't know, we've ended up sort of being with them and hearing their hearts and what's going on, and sitting with them and just saying, mate, that just sucks, what can we do? Yes, absolutely pray. Prayer is powerful. Don't underestimate the power of prayer. But sometimes to stand alongside someone, let them cry, let them snot, and let them just say, life sucks, because sometimes it does. Sometimes that's all you need to do, is say to them, life sucks, here, what can I do? So don't underestimate those little connections that you have with people in the cafe or through life. They can be really powerful. I'm not sure if I've said this, I'm just thinking, did I say? What happens on the valley? Have I said about what happens on the valley? No. What you do on the hilltops determines how you survive the valleys. When life is going pretty well for you, how are you spending your time? Are you just swanning along, or are you getting into the Word and doing those things? So when you hit that rough patch, because it will come, I think it's in John, it says hardships or something will come to all. It's going to come. If it's not come already, it will come. It says it here. It's not from here, it says it here. I'm just saying what's here, so don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. Those hard times will come. So on the hilltops, do those things well, and that will help you navigate through those valleys. I 100% guarantee it. Sheree, could we have that first photo? This here is my granddad and my nana on my mother's side. And that photo was taken with my auntie Nolene, who was only, Mandy and I think, sort of 18 months-ish. We're not quite sure. My parents are not quite sure either. But let's go around about 18 months-ish. And that was taken a day or two before my grandfather went to the Guadalcanal. He was a gunner, and he was deployed there to serve in the army. While he was away, my nana was very intentional at showing my auntie Nolene, pictures of her daddy. And back then, pictures weren't abundant. They were really expensive, and they would have been quite small, probably, well, black and white, almost certainly. But I can imagine my auntie sitting on the floor looking at her papa and just really inspecting, looking at all the little bits of him and really just getting to know him. And my nana was very intentional about talking to her about him and bringing him into conversations and all of those awesome things. And then when he returned home to Wanganui, he was on a train, and there was hundreds of people there waiting for these young men to get off the train. And people were everywhere, and there would have been great excitement. You know, we've seen the pictures, we've seen the movies of that sort of thing. My auntie, who was probably about 4-ish then, spied him in the crowd before my nana did. Ran to him, arms, and that photo was taken later on, but I think that was taken the day he came. But she recognised him. We've got to recognise who our God is. If we don't spend time inspecting, looking, how do we know when he's talking to us? You know, Andrew had those stools, didn't he? And different voices. How do we know who God's voice is if we don't spend that time in the Word, getting to know him for the battle that's to come? And I just think it's just an awesome story of running to your papa. And that photo there, like she's looking at him, like she's inspecting that face, that how's it changed since that photo. And I just think it's a pure, awesome picture of us running into our Father's arms. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. I love that. If the ushers could start handing out communion, that would be lovely, thank you. I want to jump now, see, I told you we're jumping, to Psalm 23. And I think it was Jono speaking out of this a month or so back. And verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. And Jono was talking about when you have a banquet type thing and you are the host, that you protect your guests and such like. I want to look at it from a little bit of a different avenue. So keep that in mind, but let's jump to Genesis now, all the way back to Genesis. Genesis 14. Where have I got that? Verse 13 onwards for a bit. Before this point, there were some wars going on. There were like 4 bad kings, 5 good kings, and there were fights and all this sort of stuff happening around this area. And in one of those battles, Abram's nephew Lot and his wife and family got kidnapped and taken away. So that's the prelude to where we are here. One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre and Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them and routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the woman and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating that guy and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shevev, that is, the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God the Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. So there's this king who was a high priest bringing out bread and wine into a battle scene. I find that a little bit interesting where he prepares a table in amongst our enemies. Stay with me here. We're now going to jump through a little bit ahead to Exodus, and you'll know a little bit more about this story. I'll just read it from Exodus 12:12. On that same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, both men and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Again, we see people in a battlefield. There was a battle going on for the slaves, weren't there, between the Israelites and the Pharaoh. There was a battle, and then the blood comes into it. Yeah? Okay, good. Now we're going to jump through to Matthew. Yeah, we get into the New Testament. Matthew 26, from 23 to 28. Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." Jesus answered, "Yes, it is you." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood, the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." So there's our mighty Jesus in the presence of his enemy, Judas, who's about to betray him. He sets a table in the presence of my enemies, and he partakes with him. Michael, could you come up on the keys, please? And I wonder what we do with the blood. I wonder how we see Jesus and the blood. All the wars that have gone on through history, there is no blood more precious than the blood that was spilled from Jesus. They say in the Bible that there were 7 times he bled, 7 times that we know of that he bled. And each of the blood is a different sign. How can that blood be more powerful than all the other blood put together? Because it washes us. It washes us whiter than snow. Andrew said last week that when we accept Jesus, we cannot be any more pure. When we take on Jesus, everything is done. It is an amazing transaction what has happened. And what I want to do this morning is bring Jesus into your battle. What are you going through now? What is your family going through? Because if we don't bring Jesus into there, it's going to be really hard. It may not be a winning battle. Before our eldest son was born, my brother was very sick with a leukemia. At that stage, there were 3 of the same cases in the world. 2 of them were in Christchurch, and 1 was in Canada. Really unusual, it was in an adult male. It's normally in children. Upstairs in the same hospital, my sister was battling mental health. She tried to do herself in. For my parents and I guess, but more so for my parents, it was a battle. Did they get victory? One side they did. my brother passed away. It doesn't always happen how we think it's going to happen. But we need to have him in. We need to have him in the battle. I look at Brett down there. How could have he done the battle without God? How could any of us go through what we go through? I was talking to someone last night, and they just, about their mum, and she was diagnosed with cancer, and she said, I don't know how people do it without him. How do you do it without God? The dreaded C word. Bring God into your battle. And I just want to invite you to just, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I used to think, and I shared this with the guys down at the Gowan Valley the other week, I used to think that you couldn't take the blood unless you were like, oh Lord, is there anything in my life I need to sort out? When in Exodus, when the angel of death flew over Egypt, all he was looking for was the blood. Not what was going on in the heart, just the blood. So don't think you've got to get it right to partake. Please don't think that. That's not my God. My God doesn't work like that. He says, freely I've given, freely come. I know it was a different context, but that's his heart for us. So I just want to take a few minutes. If maybe the music team, I'm not sure what to do here, but maybe the music team come up and we'll go into a song or something. But if you want to come up the front and be on your knees, if you want to come and stand at the cross, if you just want to be with your partner or I hate that word, partner, with your spouse or your family, and just join together in the battle. If you want to do it on your own, that's fine too. But just invite Jesus into doing it. And can I say, you can do this outside of church. You can partake in the emblems outside of church. You don't have to wait for the church to say to take it. I was feeling really rough at 2 o'clock this morning, and I went and grabbed a cracker and a bit of water and had communion and saying, Lord, I need you in this situation, because I was battling to be here this morning. I'll leave it with you and we'll just come back, but just be with God. Let him carry you. Let him guide you in the battle, because he's the God of victory. He is the God of victory. He wins in the end. Not that he's not winning now, but he wins. We've read it.